What is going on, guys? Welcome to Warzone Wednesday episode 6. Today's topic, I want to talk about the most common question I've had since I started doing this series, and that was talking about class balance in the game. Now, there was a lot of people who suggested this, so I'm not going to list names specifically. I might put them in the description, I don't know yet, I'm going to have a look. But there was a lot of people who suggested this. It is the most common topic I've talked about, and class balance is always really a dangerous territory, I think, to talk about so early on in an MMO, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I'm not going to go in too much detail. Like I say, it is very early on in this game, you know, although it has been out for over 2 months now. That is still pretty early, and I think it's still quite early for people to come up with those really overpowered specs. But I think there are 1 or 2 classes and 1 or 2 specs that have shined through and that have shown that they are pretty powerful, and already we've seen BioWare that have done a lot to change these classes. I think within the first month there was already a patch out to change class balance and stuff like that. So I'm going to go and talk about that now. So first of all, I want to talk about the overall class balance within the game. I think how well they handled it from the start. So I played early access. Well, I actually played the beta first, but I'm not really going to class that because that was more to test that was more to test server stability rather than actual class balance and in-game items and things like that. But starting from early access, I think they got the class balance pretty well to start off with. I think they managed pretty well, considering it was only just out. It was in early access. I think it was pretty balanced compared to other MMOs. You look at Warhammer Online and World of Warcraft, there is always 1 or 2 classes that are really overpowered all the time, no matter what. And I think that you can never really get that right in MMO. I think you're always going to especially in PvP, you're always going to have someone who's overpowered, some class who's going to be better in some certain situation than others. For example, range DPS are always going to be better in 1v1s if they start off at range and you can't get in melee distance because you can't do hardly any damage. They can kite you around, etc. Rogue classes are very good at starting up with openers and getting the CCs in there and things like that. There's a lot of certain situations where classes are going to seem overpowered, but actually it's just a situation that they handle really well in. And I think that BioWare really, I think it's because they've given players so much choice within the specs that there's nothing really overpowered. And it's kind of reminding me a bit of Rift, where in Rift I remember there was a lot I think that was really the first game that gave you so much customization. And in Star Wars it's the same. So for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to go over really quick. There are Republic and Imperial, there's 4 classes to choose from. Okay, I'm not going to go over races, they don't really affect anything. But there are 4 classes to choose from. And within each class there are then, once you hit level 10 I think it is, or level 15, I'm sure it's level 10, you then get to branch off to 2 different talent trees. So for example, the Sith Warrior gets to branch off to either the Sith Marauder or the Sith Juggernaut. So the Sith Juggernaut is the tank talent tree, or the tank based, I should say, the survivability tree. And the Sith Marauder is the pure melee DPS tree. Once you've branched off to those trees, there are then 3 separate talent trees within those sub-trees. So, for example, in Marauder, there are 3 separate trees, and I can't remember the name. I know one of them's called Carnage. That's the spec that I've gone on with my Marauder. But there are 3 separate trees, and all of them are based around certain combat techniques and certain forms in battle and how you play. And I think what they've done really well is put it a lot down to player skill. Now, some of you may be going, oh, well, what about Jedi Consulates? They're really overpowered, and there's a lot of them. I agree. I think the Jedi Consular and the Sith Inquisitor, the Sage spec, are extremely overpowered still, and I think they are very overplayed. Now, they have nerfed them, and it was noticeable when they did nerf them, but thing is, there are still now a lot of people playing them. You're always going to get a high amount of Sith Inquisitors, and not so much Consulars. I do see a lot of Inquisitors though, but I'm not going to come to that conclusion because that's not fair. But that is, I think, the most common class, and I think it is one of the most powerful, but it can be beaten. I have beaten Sages before on my Jedi Shadow, and I think it's all about player skill, which is what I've just said. I think BioWare have done a brilliant job of making the classes more about player skill and more about your play style within the game. You know, when you look at these different talent trees, there is one for everyone. For example, the Sith Marauder was for me. I don't really find tanks that exciting in PvP, so I knew straight away I was going to go for the Marauder spec because that is pure DPS. Once I did that, I knew that I wanted to no, I wasn't really too bothered about my survivability. I just wanted to do as much damage as possible before I die. So that's why I went into the Carnage spec within the Marauder spec. So you can see that I've really molded that class around my playstyle, and therefore if someone else were to pick that up who say is better at a tank or a caster, they're not necessarily gonna do as well as I am. It is a lot down to play. Even if the Marauder was extremely powerful and could do a lot of damage, let's say, you know, they were hitting something like 5k each time, if they don't know how to play that class because I've made it to me, then they're not going to know how to play that well enough to, because it doesn't match their playstyle, to make it seem good and to make it seem powerful. So again, I think Bioware have done a brilliant job about making it about player skill and about molding it to your style, and I think this goes back to the roots of the game, which is making it about you, making it about your saga. And I think even in PvP that has carried on through really, really well. I think you'll struggle to find a lot of classes that have got the similar spec or the same spec in one PvP Warzone, unless you go Sage. I think there's one spec in Sage that is and Sorcerer, which is the most common one. Don't know what it is because I haven't played that spec. Again, I think that they've done a brilliant job right from the start about making it about player skill, and I think if they can keep that up, that would be brilliant. We've seen within the first month there was already released a patch that buffed the Jedi Knight and Sith Warrior and nerfed the Sith Inquisitor and Jedi Consular, and that was needed. That was needed, and I think that was because I remember in the beta, the Jedi Knight and Sith Warrior could do a lot of damage, and they did nerf it for the full game. But in the full game, they didn't really do enough on par with the Sith Inquisitor and Jedi Consular. So they've evened it out pretty well now. And I think that the where the class imbalance does come in now, however, is once you hit level 50. Now this is a huge problem. I don't think it can be solved because we've seen this problem in Warhammer Online. We've seen it in World of Warcraft, we've seen it in Dark Age of Camelot, we've seen it in pretty much any other MMO game that's got PvP and has got PvP gear, and that's the gear. Once I hit level 50, I didn't have any PvP gear at all. That meant I had 0 expertise. Now expertise is the rating that you get that increases your effectiveness in PvP against other players. It increases the damage done, it increases the survivability, it increases the healing taken, etc, etc. And it really is like that stat that you need if you're going to do well in PvP, because even if you are an extremely good player and playing an extremely overpowered class, you're not going to do well if you haven't got the expertise. Now I had 0 expertise for days. My server is very Imperial dominated. Republic hardly ever win a Warzone. Empire win pretty much, I'd say every 8 Warzones, they win about 7 of them. It's crazy, and it took me ages to actually starting to get some decent PvP gear. I've got 2 pieces of Champion and 4 pieces of Centurion gear at the moment, so my expertise is going up quite a bit now. Before I got that gear, I had 0 expertise and I couldn't hit a thing. My crits were only going for about 1.2k. I was dying in like 2 seconds. Seriously, there was like bounty hunters that were just one-shotting me, and I think that it was pretty awkward, and that was where I thought that, oh well, the bounty hunter's overpowered, which I think it is a pretty powerful class, but I don't think it is overpowered. And I was starting to think that, but then I thought, no, it's because I haven't got the gear. You know, I was playing how I normally do. The tactics I used worked, and because I know the works, I used them pre-50 and things like that. I knew it was a very good spec, but it was purely for the fact I had no expertise and I was dying ever so quick, and I knew that. But once I got this Champion gear and Centurion gear, I was doing extremely well. I'm critting for much higher, I can survive longer, I'm doing much more damage, getting many more death blows. Unfortunately, some of it is down to gear, but I think Bioware, again, have done a brilliant job of making it a lot like player skill. And I think it is more about player skill and playstyle rather than gear. But again, I think there could be a little bit more done, but not too much. I think they've done an excellent job, and I think I've got to give my hand to Bioware for doing such an excellent job on that straight away, because it is extremely difficult to get that class balance straight away. It is extremely difficult to get them as balanced as possible, especially when PvP is involved, and getting that balanced with then PvE as well, because that's even harder. Getting the balance right between if the class is good in PvE and if it's good in PvP is even harder. It's crazy, and I would hate to have that job. So that's my opinion on it anyway. Thumbs up to Bioware. I think they've done a brilliant job, and I think this is one of the most balanced MMOs to contain, like, you know, a certain amount of balanced classes. I think it's an excellent MMO for that. And yeah, considering this amount of customization, I would have thought that would have been a downfall to class balance, but actually I think it's it's what caused it to go really well. So hope you enjoyed this commentary anyway. Thank you very much for all your suggestions. Everyone who suggested that comment, awesome. If you want to leave a suggestion for the next episode, drop it in the comment section below. If you've already left it in the previous episode before, drop it anyway. And I've always got a backlog. I'll always go back and check previous episodes to see which ones I haven't covered yet, and I will go and cover them. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to come out with a Warzone Wednesday next week. I'm maybe busy. I'm going to try my best to come out with one. Hopefully I can, but if not, then you know the reason why. I'm going to be quite busy. So other than that, I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please rate the video. That would be really appreciated. It shows that you enjoy this series and you want to see more. It really does encourage me to make more when I see lots of ratings. So other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next episode.